These two flashes are kind of the same, but also different. Let's talk about rectangular versus round flash heads on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. Here I am, as always, answering your photography questions right here on Adorama TV. If you've got a photo question, you know what to do. Just go to askdavidbergman.com and submit that form on the site. I just might pick your question answer right here on a future show. Today's question was sent in by Jake C, and he wants to know, is there any difference between a normal Speedlite and one with a round head? The round ones seem to be popular now, so I want to know if I'm missing anything. Thanks, Jake, for sending in that question. It's a pretty good one. Now I'm going to talk about Speedlites today, and I'm going to go over the differences between those two types. So Speedlites, just to be clear, are the portable flashes like this one that you can stick right on top of your camera. Traditionally, yes, they have a rectangular head on them. The type of lens they use is called a Fresnel, and it does a really good job in focusing that big burst of light and pushing it out in the direction that you want. Now, this is the Canon EL5. It's one of the newest Speedlights on the market. But as Jake mentioned, there are some Speedlite-sized flashes out now that have a round head instead of rectangular. Now, this is the Westcott FJ80 version 2. It also has a Fresnel lens, but you can see the difference in shape. There are also similar sized flashes with round heads available from other companies like Profoto and Flashpoint or Godox. So what's the difference between the two? Well, maybe this is obvious, but the shape of the light coming out is going to be different. You can see the differences slightly when I shoot them directly at a flat wall using the flash on camera with no modifiers. One is rectangular and the other is just a bit more rounded. It's not really a huge difference, but it is there. Here's the thing though, it's not very often that you're going to shoot a Speedlite on camera with no modifiers into just a flat wall. For me, most of the time I use a Speedlite when I'm in a moving run and gun situation. If I'm backstage at a concert, for example, and I want to kick some light into the scene, I'm going to put my flash in the camera hot shoe, but I don't shoot it straight at my subject. I rotate the head and point it up at the ceiling. That's going to bounce up off the ceiling and it's going to raise the ambient light in the room and is a great way to work when you need to be mobile. Now in that situation, the shape of the flash won't make any noticeable difference. Once it hits the ceiling, the light spreads out and bounces all over the place, so it really doesn't matter what shape it started at. Now your Speedlite usage might be different than mine, so the shape could have a slight impact on your images if you're using it by firing it directly at your subject. There's no right or wrong here. Everybody's going to do their own thing, but if you want a more rounded light, use a round head. Now there are a couple of big misconceptions that I've heard about round flash heads. The first is that a round head gives you softer light. Well, the way you make light softer is to make it bigger relative to your subject. The round head is slightly bigger, but from more than a few feet away, they're really almost the same size. Look at the shadow behind the lens produced by these flashes in these pictures. The round FJ80 does give a slightly softer shadow, but in the real world, I don't think you'd see much of a difference on your subject. Now, I also hear some photographers talk about the difference in the catchlight being round or rectangular. A catchlight is that small spot you see in people's eyes that's a reflection of the light source. Some say the catchlight from a round head is more pleasing because it's the same shape as the sun, and that's what we normally expect to see. Okay, first of all, a round catchlight isn't automatically more pleasing just because it's the same shape as the sun. What if you're indoors, for example? You wouldn't expect to see the sun in anyone's eyes there. Also, unless you're doing a super tight shot of the eyes, you really can't see much of a difference in the shape of the catchlight. The sun is 92 million miles away. The catchlight in your eye would be tiny. You think you can make out the shape in someone's eyes from that small of a catchlight? I recently did a photo shoot with a Viking model in New York City. Yes, you heard me right, a Viking model. In this city, in New York, nobody really noticed, but we walked around and made some cool shots. For this picture in Times Square, I lit him with a Westcott FJ200 strobe. It's more powerful than a Speedlite, but still pretty small and easy to carry around, so it was perfect for this shoot. Now we had the light bare without any modifier. Like most studio strobes, the flash head is round, so the catchlight in his eyes is round, but it's tiny. Just to compare, I went into Photoshop and turned that round catchlight into a rectangular one. I even made it a little bigger so it was more noticeable. When you zoom in, you can see a slight difference, but I wouldn't say the rectangular one is less pleasing. And when I zoom out to the full image, you can't really see any difference at all. Now, I've only been talking about flash with no modifiers. That's not a very common way to shoot because these light sources are relatively small. Small light means hard light. Hard light isn't particularly flattering on people, so you're probably going to use modifiers like an umbrella or a softbox. Does the shape of the flash have any impact then? Well, keep in mind, the whole point of using a modifier is to change the shape of the light coming out of your flash. You might want to turn a small hard light into a large soft light, for example. To do that, you probably want to fill up the entire modifier with light. Now, if you're using a round modifier like an umbrella or an octabox, and you're shooting directly through it, then I'd recommend a round head. You can see that the rectangular head doesn't evenly fill up this shoot-through umbrella. Even the round head doesn't quite make it all the way to the edges, but it's a more symmetrical light pattern. Now, if you really want to fill it up, just add this little Westcott diffusion dome. It pops on very simply with a magnetic mount, and it pushes the light out in all directions. Now the light is way more even if that's your goal. Now, if you're using a rectangular softbox, especially one that you shoot the flash right into the front diffusion, you're probably better off with a rectangular head. However, if you're using a modifier that you shoot the light into the back and maybe it has a layer or two of diffusion on the front, that light is going to bounce all around in there and it's going to fill out easily whether you've got a round or a rectangular flash. Using the Photex soft lighter, there's really no difference between the two. It doesn't matter what it was when it came out of the head. Now, practically speaking, if I'm doing the kind of work where I've got big modifiers, I'm probably going to use a more powerful studio strobe instead of a Speedlite anyway. Okay, so is there anything else you should consider when deciding if you're team round or team rectangle? It's really just a matter of the system that you use and the accessories that you have. Most accessories are made for one shape or the other. Now, Glow makes an S-type bracket to use bow and mount modifiers with a traditional rectangular Speedlite. The vast majority of Strobist-type gear is made for that rectangular shape. That is slowly changing though. Westcott makes an S bracket that takes round heads. Magmod has updated their mag grip so that it actually works on either type, but if you already own a bunch of stuff for one shape or the other, it probably makes sense to stick with that shape. Now, if you don't have anything yet and are just starting out, then I don't think it really matters that much. There are definitely more rectangular flash options available with different power levels and functions since they've been around a lot longer. But some of the newer round heads have cool features like that easy magnetic attachment. But as for the shape, I personally wouldn't buy one or the other based exclusively on the shape. Don't stress that much about it. It's really not that big a deal. If you learn to control light either bare or with modifiers, you'll always be able to get the look that you want, no matter the shape of the flash head. Jake, I hope that answers your question. No, I don't think you're missing anything. What do you all think? Are you team round or team rectangle? Let me know why in the comments below. Remember, you can send in your own photo questions by going to askdavidbergman.com and filling out that form. If you like these videos, I always appreciate you hitting that like button and of course subscribing to the Adorama channel by clicking below. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you'll come back next time when I'll have another question to answer right here on Ask David Bergman.